of you amazing packet tracers out there. I am GTIT. I hope you're in for some packet tracing today. I know I am because we are doing VLAN configuration and inter-VLAN routing. Now, I remember when I was new, this kind of sucked. There are lots of ways to make little just tiny mistakes that you don't see or you can't find, and then it's like, well, why is it not working? Why is it not working? And it's like the simplest thing. So I will try my best to make sure that beginners kind of understand what's going on and can do this quick and simple, okay? So the objectives for today are to, of course, create some VLANs. We're going to assign some switch ports to these VLANs. We're going to configure trunk connections, and we're going to set up inter-VLAN routing using our router. Okay, why do we do this? For efficiency, security, and ease of management, right? So if you can imagine, let's say we're in an office building. Here's our office building. Forget this rectangle's here. Forget this rectangle's here. It's just a big open space. We got two switches. Let's say we got 10 PCs here. We got 10 PCs here. We got 10 PCs over here. Here's our HR PCs, sales PCs, who else? IT PCs. Okay, so if there are no VLANs and it's just one big network, traffic's going everywhere. No discrepancy, no purpose. It's just going everywhere. Sales traffic is going to IT and is going to HR and things you don't want sales to see from HR. They're seeing it anyways. Um, it's slowing everything down because of all the traffic. It's making it less secure, less private. So we create these VLANs. So now HR has its own little network, okay, where it's protected by this rectangle. Uh, so all the HR traffic, it's staying in HR. And the only way it's leaving to, let's say, sales or let's say IT is if we wanted to, right? So that's why we're doing this. The topology we're using is called router on a stick. Why? I don't know. It doesn't really look like a stick, but hey, I didn't create it. So what we're going to need, a router, two switches, and we're going to also need two PCs. So we're going to bring our PCs in here. Now, you guys remember Mr. Lonely. He missed you guys a lot. It's very lonely. Oh, excuse me. But it's Mr. Lonely's lucky day today. We're gonna find him some companionship, whether it be a friend, a lover, a soulmate, whatever you like. That's what we're gonna find. So that's what this switch is. Now, I don't like switch one. It's not an interesting name. Let's be a little bit fun. Mrs. Lonely. Okay. Now, so far these two, they've just entered the bar, they just entered the lounge, wherever. They're not connected yet, right? They haven't even seen each other. So let's set up some sort of connection here. So we got to connect our PCs first. So imagine fast Ethernet 0 is the Ethernet port on the back of your PC. We're going to connect it to our switch. We're going to do this. We're going to do this one to number 10. Fast Ethernet 0/10. I'm now calling it FA 0/10, okay? We're going to connect this one here, PC, to number 1 over here. Okay, FA 0/1. Now for these two here, because they are the same device, we need to use what's called a crossover cable. And for these, that got in the way, we're going to connect them to Gigabit Ethernet 0/2 or GI 0/2 for short. We're going to connect it to the same on here. And now for these, because they're different devices, we just need the regular straight through. We're going to connect these GI 0/1 to GI 00/1. Okay, perfect. So Now they're cables. Now they've seen each other. You see that line right there? They have seen each other. They are sharing a romantic glance across the room, but they have not talked yet. And that's where this comes in, the router, also known as the matchmaker. That's right, ready to create some romance. So, what we need to do first is we need to get into the switch here and we need to create some VLANs for our teams. Our HR team, sales team needs one, IT team needs one, right? So we got to get into our enable mode. From there, we got to get into our config mode, right? You can see we're in config. You remember config? We're in there. And we're going to create some VLANs. We're going to create VLAN 10. You just type in VLAN 10. Now, you can then give it whatever number you want. I'm just doing this because it's easy for me to remember. You can give it VLAN 1, VLAN 99, not VLAN 1. VLAN 1 is the default VLAN. VLAN 2, all the way to VLAN, whatever, 1000. So now you see it changed to config dash VLAN. So we're in the VLAN. We're going to give it a name. We're going to name it HR. I'm sticking with HR. Again, you can name it anything you want. Sales, marketing. You can name it Godzilla if you want. It's up to you. Make it your own, right? We got to also create VLAN 20. We're going to give it a name. We're going to call it sales. We also got to make VLAN 30. We're going to give it a name. We're going to name it IT. Why not, right? So now that we have created our VLANs, we have to assign switch ports to these VLANs for the connections, right? So we're going to type in interface range. Now let me tell you, when I did this for the first time, I did all of this one by one, by one, by one. It was so tedious because I didn't know about this range. Nobody told me about the range. I had to find out about it by myself. So if I can save one person from having to do that, this will have been a success. I will die happy. So for the range for this, we're going to do 1 to 9. Okay, these are the ports that we are going to assign to VLAN 10. So we got to put these ports in access mode. And now we got to assign these ports to VLAN 10. And now we got to make sure that they are open with the no shut command. Because if they're not open, it doesn't matter what we do. Nobody will be able to communicate, okay? So now I'm going to press on the up arrow for speed's sake. It does that little autofill as you've seen. But if you're a beginner, I suggest that you type the whole thing out over and over again just to kind of help get used to it, right? It makes things a lot easier later. So now we're going to do 10 to 19. We are going to put them in, well, we got to put them in access mode first. We are going to put them in VLAN 20. And you can type out no shut because it's nice and short, right? Now we got to do 30. So we will do the range. What did we do last? 10 to 19. So now we'll do 20. Let's do 20 to 23. Beautiful. Okay. Put them in access mode. Stick them in VLAN 30 in our IT team. Wow, there are only 3 people in the IT team, right? So, and I forgot to mention, you know you're in the range because you see here interface range. Remember, IF is short for interface. Okay. So now our ports have all been assigned. So we're going to head back to enable mode because again, in enable mode, you can see the configuration of your switch. You remember? So now we're going to check what we just did by show VLAN brief. Wow. So now you can see the number, VLAN 10, the name that we gave it, HR, and the interfaces that we stuck in there, 1 to 9. Yours probably looks a little different because the font is probably smaller. Mine looks all crazy because I need bigger font. But hey, what are you gonna do, right? So we've created 20 sales, interfaces, 30 IT. Perfect. Now before we leave this switch, we got to get ourselves back into config mode, and we have to set up what's called a trunk connection. And this is going to allow the multiple VLANs on these switches to communicate with each other, right? So let's get in there. And let's make sure we know what interfaces that we're doing. GI0/2. Okay, so we're doing GI0/2. Interface GI0/2. Pow. Okay, and we're going to do switch port, not switch, whatever that is. Switch port mode, and we're putting it into trunk. Perfect. Okay. So now, again, to make sure that we did what we say we did, we're going to go into enable mode. See, we're in enable mode there. And we're going to show interface trunk. And now you can see here, it says GI0/2. That's the one we wanted. It's on. It is trunking. These are all the VLANs, 1 to 1005, that can go through the trunk. Here are the ones we have created. So beautiful. Everything is working fine there. So we can close this for now. I've already configured this switch here because yeah, for time's sake, right? So now we need to give the matchmaker the information possible to get everybody talking here. So we're going to go in our router. The router looks a lot like the switch, which is nice because if you're comfortable with the router, the switch, you'll be comfortable with the router, right? Let's get into config mode. Now what we got to do now is create what's called sub interfaces. Now you see these here. Imagine this is a real switch, a real PC. It's got the Ethernet port, physical connection there, the real wire, right? These sub interfaces are something we create so that, for each VLAN to talk. It's logical, port, abstract. It's so that everything can travel through this one cable into the rest, right? So let's do that. Now, I'll move it over here just so we can kind of see. So we're going to create these 3 sub interfaces. So you see here GI00/1, that is the physical interface, the physical port on the router. The .10 is the sub interface that we create. So let's do that. We're going to type in interface GI0/0/1, physical interface, right? .10. There is our sub interface. And you'll see it says sub interface. Perfect. Okay. Now you got to do something called encapsulation dot 1Q10 because our VLAN 10. So you're going to put 10. And this is just going to tell the VLANs where the data that they're getting is coming from, what VLAN it's coming from, right? Because just like in real life, you want to know where things are coming from. So we're going to do that. And now we got to give it an IP address. So we're going to type an IP address. We're going to go 192.168.10.1. So because this is on the router, you're giving it like a gateway address, right? .1. And we're giving it 192.168.10.1 because it's on network, right? 192.168.10.0. That's the network. This is the gateway for that network, right? And of course, we got to put in, don't forget, the subnet mask. And there it is, just like a physical port. Whoop. You got to make sure that it's open. Beautiful. Okay. Now, for time's sake, I'm doing the autofill. If you're a beginner, I suggest you type. So we're doing VLAN 20 now, subinterface.20. We got to do the encapsulation, but again, change the number for whatever VLAN you're doing. So I'm changing it to 20. Now we got to give it an IP address. So you're going to do IP address 192.168 dot. Now you got to change this because the network, right? The network 20.0. So you got to change this 20.1. Remember, this is like the gateway. Whoops. We don't want that. We do not want that. So let's put that 0 back in there. And let's change this to 20. There we go. Okay. And then we got to make sure that it's open, just like the physical port. Now we're going to do 30. I know I sound like a broken record. I apologize. But it is what it is. All right. We got to do the encapsulation for VLAN 30. We got to give it an IP address. I am not putting in that subnet mask again. If you're typing it out, always remember with the subnet mask. Okay, it's got its IP. Okay, perfect. We gotta make sure. No autofill for that. We just type it in. Wow. Okay. So now let's go back to enable mode. And let's make sure that we've created these properly. So we are in enable mode. You can tell right there. We're gonna do show IP interface brief. We love our briefs here in Packet Tracer. So we have, there's the normal physical port right here. Now here, dot 10. That's the one we created for VLAN 10. There's its IP, right? There's number 20. There's number 30. Beautiful. Okay. So now that we have done that, I forgot to mention one thing. I put this on FA0/10 because remember when we were assigning ports to the different VLANs, this is VLAN 20. Port, where is it? Port 10 is assigned to VLAN 20, right? So let's say if I put port, if I connected this to port 9, it wouldn't work, right? Because port 9 is assigned to VLAN 10. So you need to use a port here that's assigned to VLAN 20, which is FA010 to FA019, right? So as long as it's one of those, it'll work. It'll be able to connect. That's one of the little mistakes that it can happen there, right? So now we just got to give our PCs addresses. So for the default gateway, remember it always ends in .1, and remember there's your network that you're on. So it's going to be 192.168.20.1. That's the gateway. We're going to go into our Ethernet port here, and we're going to assign it an IP address so that we can ping it 192.168. Let's say 20.10. Let's keep it simple. And it'll put the subnet mask in automatically, which I love. And now we got to give this one an IP address and a gateway because it's in network 10.0. What do we do? You got it. 10.1. That's the gateway. And in here, 192.168.10.10. Now, this last number, you can make it anything from 2 to 255 as long as these three are the same as this. All right? Put it in automatically. Beautiful. Now, these two PCs should be able to communicate. So let's test it out. Get to the desktop, my friend. Okay. Command prompt, we're going in there. Let's first see what our IP address is. So we got it, the one we assigned, 192.168.10.10. Perfect. Okay. So we are going to ping 20.10 over here. We are this, we're going to ping this. So let's see. Ping 192.168.20.10. And we're going to go in. We're going to wait. We're going to wait. Request timed out. Ah, perfect. You guys thought it wasn't going to work, but it worked. That little 3 seconds there. Oh man, that's brutal. Okay, but it worked. So I guess we can just ping this one out from the other one. This is why not for kicks, just so you guys see. Ping 192.168. Where are we now? We're in VLAN 20. So we're gonna ping .10.10. Pow, 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 pow. They can talk. Mrs. Lonely, Mr. Lonely, they have met. They are talking. They are quickly falling in love as we speak. Great job on the VLAN creation, the Inter-VLAN routing, the router on a stick. You have allowed multiple VLANs to communicate. There's all the commands. Way to go. This should be you right now. So thank you for watching, and see you next time for DHCP, which will definitely not be this long. Thanks for watching. Take it easy.